Today, we're diving into the Book of Psalms. Now, these aren't just old poems. They're this incredible collection of ancient songs and prayers, just packed with raw human emotion. I mean, they capture everything, from the deepest, darkest moments of despair, all the way to the most joyful praise.
But what if I told you there's a secret hidden inside these songs? A single, unified voice that you can hear echoing across all these different writers, across all those centuries. That's what we're going to do today. We are going to piece together a portrait, finding the clues hidden right there in the verses.
So, what exactly is the Book of Psalms? Well, you can think of it as ancient Israel's worship book. It was their guide for how to talk to God, no matter what was going on in life. It literally teaches you how to relate to Him, whether you're celebrating, or you're mourning, or you just need to say you're sorry. It's so profoundly human, but as we're about to see, it's also deeply prophetic. It's pointing forward to one very specific person.
All right, so let's start building our portrait. We're on the hunt for this one person whose voice echoes through these songs. And the very first piece of the puzzle we find is the identity of a king. But not just any king, a very, very specific one. Our first clue pops up in Psalm 2. It talks about earthly kings rebelling against the Lord and against His anointed. Now, that word, anointed, is key. In Hebrew, it's Messiah. So right from the get-go, the Psalms are pointing to a coming Messiah, a specially chosen king. And it gets even more specific. Just a few verses later, in that exact same psalm, God Himself speaks directly to this anointed king, and He says, "You are my son." This sets up a relationship that is completely unique. This king isn't just chosen, he is identified as the Son of God. Now, fast forward hundreds of years and listen to this. At the baptism of Jesus, a voice from heaven declares, "This is my beloved Son." The New Testament writers couldn't be any clearer. They are making a direct line, connecting Jesus to this messianic king from the Psalms. So the first piece of our portrait is snapping into place. The Psalms paint this picture of a coming king who has divine sonship, royal kingship, and ultimate authority. This is our foundation. But believe me, the picture is far from finished. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the next piece of the portrait seems like a total contradiction. The same voice that speaks with ultimate authority also speaks of unimaginable suffering. Just listen to this cry from Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me?" This is not the voice of a conquering king, right? This is a voice of pure agony, someone feeling totally and completely abandoned by God. It's a question that just hangs there in the air. And the detail, wow, it gets even more specific, and honestly, it's shocking. Later in that same psalm, the sufferer says, "They have pierced my hands and feet." You have to remember, this was written centuries before crucifixion was even a common form of execution. The prophecy here is just incredibly precise. And here it is, the fulfillment. As Jesus is hanging on the cross, the Gospel of Matthew tells us He cried out the very first words of Psalm 22. He wasn't just quoting a familiar song about pain. He was identifying Himself as the person this entire psalm was written about. So this is so important. Psalm 22 isn't just some sad song. It's a detailed prophecy of Christ's crucifixion, of His deep spiritual suffering, and of His substitutionary death, meaning He died in our place. So now our portrait has two seemingly opposite sides, a king and a sufferer. Okay, this portrait is really starting to come into focus. So now let's add the final details and fill in the other key roles that we see this person take on throughout the Psalms. First up, the role of the shepherd. I mean, Psalm 23 is probably the most famous psalm of all, right? The Lord is my shepherd. It's this beautiful image of gentle care and protection. And who steps up and claims that title? Jesus. In the Gospel of John, He declares, "I am the good shepherd," and He adds that He lays down His life for His sheep. Next, we see the role of a priest. Psalm 110, which happens to be one of the most quoted psalms in the entire New Testament, describes a figure who is both a king, sitting at God's right hand, and a priest forever. This person rules and intercedes for His people, which points directly to Christ as our one and only King and High Priest. And for the final piece, the perfect man. The very first psalm, Psalm 1, it describes the ideal righteous person, someone whose delight is in the law of the Lord. And while, yeah, this is an ideal for all of us to shoot for, it ultimately points to the only person who ever actually lived it out perfectly, Christ himself. He is the complete fulfillment of that perfect man.
So, there we have it, our finished portrait. A king who suffers, a shepherd who dies for his sheep, a priest who rules forever, and a perfect man. But, so what? Why does this even matter? How does understanding this change the way we read these ancient songs today? Well, it changes everything. When it comes to worship, it means our praise isn't just based on our feelings. It's centered on the person and work of Christ. When it comes to suffering, it gives us permission to be brutally honest with our pain because we know Christ himself voiced these exact same laments. And for trust, it reminds us that our shepherd and our king is our ultimate refuge, no matter what we're going through. So when we put it all together, the portrait is finally complete. The anointed king, the righteous sufferer, the good shepherd, the priest king, and the perfect man. Every single one of these roles, prophesied in the Psalms, finds its ultimate fulfillment in Jesus Christ. This proves the Psalms aren't just about the human experience, they are a direct revelation of Him. Think about it like this. Imagine you're listening to this whole collection of songs, written by different people over hundreds of years. At first, you just hear a bunch of different voices, but as you listen more closely, a single, greater voice starts to emerge. One that speaks with perfect authority, suffers with perfect love, and reigns for eternity. That voice is Christ. So the next time you open up the book of Psalms, listen. Listen really closely. Because now that you know who to listen for, what do you think you'll hear?